Florida Writer Podcast, a discussion about writing and other things. Hello, Florida Writer family and friends. This is the Florida Writer Podcast. This is Allison Nissen, your host. I just said a whole bunch of thises in one sentence, but today I am with Patricia Charpentier. How many people mess it up?
Everybody.
Everybody? You get
Pretty
Carpenter
much.
a lot?
Unless I'm in South Louisiana.
South
Louisiana knows how to say my name because, that's where I'm from. So.
Right. Tell me in 60 seconds your elevator pitch about you.
Patricia Charpentier. I own Writing Your Life, which is a place for people to document their life stories, and I help them to take the story that is in their heart and mind and put it into a book that they can hold in their hands.
Do you do mostly coaching of those memories and how to put them in a book?
No, I do pretty much everything. I do a lot of coaching because it's very difficult for someone to write a book, as all Florida writers know. For someone who would not consider themselves a writer, it's even that much more difficult. So yes, they need to be coached through the process. And that's the thing with my clients is that they finish. That's what my clients finish. So I coach them through the process. I edit what they've written. I do a lot of teaching and speaking as well, but and then I publish. I've got a small publishing company, so I've ended up publishing their works, which I had to kind of back into because I thought, okay, I'm just going to help people write them. Then they wanted books, so I had to figure out, okay, how do you make this a book? So yeah, that turned into Life Story Publishing.
I've done one published book myself for a client. Big learning experience.
It is a huge learning curve, and I have rescued quite a few writers who have attempted to do it themselves and get into the mix of it and just start drowning. So yeah, I've rescued a few too because it's not an easy, intuitive kind of process. There are a lot of things you need to know, and I've got professional book designers now that I work with, and so they contract for me. And so my clients are getting, a professional to do the interior and the cover design and layout. They really end up with a very nice looking product at the end. It's not something that they could have gotten produced at, I would say Kinko's, but there is no more Kinko's, right? It's FedEx or whatever, Office Depot.
Do your clients come to you mostly by referral?
A lot of them. I'd say probably the vast majority come from someone who has heard me speak, or someone who knows someone that did a book and now they want one of their own. But some of my very favorite things to do is to teach and to speak. I'm very passionate about the importance of people writing their life stories. I grew up in a town of 400 people in South Louisiana, where I was related to half of them at least. Grew up with great grandparents that I saw every day, grandparents, great aunts, great uncles, all these, and I never asked any questions at all. And so by the time I finally got interested in my family, because from the time I was 13 years old, the only thing I was interested in was getting out of that 400 person town. So by the time I got in my 40s and got interested, all of those people were gone. So it was such a loss for me. And I just didn't want other people to experience that. So I really try to help people to answer the questions before they're even asked, to get conversations. So I do a lot of stumping, I do a lot of talking to different groups and do a lot of teaching of workshops and all, so that just to get the word out of how important this is and that it can be done. And so that's where a lot of my business comes from too, is people that hear me speak.
Many of your clients, they're just looking to publish a book for their family. Are they looking to sell their book, to become famous? What is their ultimate goal?
If they tell me they want to become famous and earn $1 million or sell $1 million in books, I'm like, I'm not the person to help you with that. If they will answer that even if they sell not one copy, it would still be worth it to them to do it, then I'll work with them. I'd say probably it's about 75% of my clients are writing for family. I've got a decent percentage of them, 25%, maybe a little more than that, who are selling and who sell fairly well.
So they have to do all their own marketing.
They do. That's one thing I do not do. I don't like doing it for myself, much less doing it for somebody else. Now, I'll plug them. I'll plug them in my newsletter, and I'm always got books with me, because I'm showing examples of what can be done with your writing your life story. So, yeah, they get some sales from that. But other than that, yeah, they're on their own to market.
You wrote a book called Eating an Elephant.
I did.
And the first time I was introduced to you was at a workshop with the Florida Writers Association, and you were discussing that book.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That was a long time ago.
It was. It's been out for quite a while now. Yeah.
Designed to do. Is it designed for people to help create their own memoir?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's called Eating an Elephant, Write Your Life One Bite at a Time. Because, we've got these huge lives we've lived, and it's very difficult to take that huge life and bring it down into something that's manageable. And that's part of what the book does. And it's written in bites. So instead of it being this long book about writing and how to do this and all, it's broken down into 200 bites. So most of them are a couple of paragraphs long, and also that it's easily digestible. They can take it in, and then it's indexed, so after they can use it as a reference more than anything. But it goes through how to do it. It gives them some and a lot of information about writing well, like things to avoid, things to do to improve their writing. And then I go into a little bit of editing and grammar, punctuation, that stuff. But try to make it's fun. It's written a lot about South Louisiana. I use examples and stories from there. And the first readers I gave it to, they were like, "Oh, this is really great, but we don't know what you're talking about. You're using all these words like gaspagoo and all this, and we don't know what a gaspagoo is." So I ended up putting a glossary in it so people could understand what I was talking about.
So what's a gaspagoo?
Gaspagoo.
Gaspagoo.
It's a big yellow catfish. It keeps it interesting. It's something a little bit out of the ordinary.
Well, just using words that are in your client's everyday vernacular helps to bring the story to life, because a word like gaspagoo.
Gaspagoo.
I could see how that adds color, because it's not just big yellow fish.
Yeah, big yellow. Yeah, it's big yellow catfish. Yeah, as opposed to
just
blue
a catfish.
Yeah, as opposed to a blue cat. Yeah, it's a yellow catfish.
It's a yellow cat.
Very ugly. Ugly. Tastes good though.
Really?
Yeah.
I have to try some. What was the first book you've ever written?
The first book that I ever wrote, this wasn't even my idea to do this work initially. I started writing again after a period of like 15 years of not writing at all, bent on self-destruction during that time, because I gave up on myself and gave up on my dream of what I wanted to do, was to write from the time I was 14. I was working for a newspaper at 14. I got some friends together and helped me brainstorm about what I might do with writing. And one of them said, "Well, you know what I think? I see you writing other people's books rather than writing your own stories." And I'm like, "It'll never work. It's too much. It takes too much time, too labor intensive. It would cost too much. It would never work." And she's like, "Okay, whatever." And so 3 years later, I went back to her and I'm like, "How were you thinking that might work?" And so I decided to try it. And I interviewed my best friend's mother without her knowing that I was interviewing her. And so I spent a lot of time interviewing her, put a book together, saw that it really was feasible to do it, and then gave it to her for Christmas. When I gave her the package, she opened the package, and on the cover I had her mother's photograph of when she was a young woman. And so she opens the package and she sees the photograph of her mother. She knows it's her mother, but she can't quite figure out why her mother is on this. And then she figured it out and she burst into tears. And I burst into tears. And I'm like, okay, this can be done. And needs to be done.
Needs to be done.
Needs to be done. And, and that book still goes around their family, and she died about 2 years ago. So the mother. So they are just so grateful to have that story that's kind of in her own words, more or less, and have the photographs and all. When I saw what an impact this makes to families, and I've seen it over and over and over again in all the books that I've done over the last 20 years, that's why it needs to be done, is because of that, the impact and the conversations. It starts conversations that would never be had otherwise. I've seen healing come from one person in a family writing a book. It's amazing.
Do any of your clients ever get themselves in trouble by divulging information that they shouldn't?
Hell, yeah, sometimes they do. I had this one client. I just love this guy so much, Lloyd, my buddy Lloyd. He's Florida cracker from the Panhandle. Couldn't spell. Oh my God. I had to call this man and ask him, what is this word? Because I mean, I couldn't even tell what it was based on his writing, And I just loved how he was, because he'd write a story and he'd get all excited about it. He'd send it to all his brothers and sisters, and his brothers and sisters would immediately email him back and say, that's not the way that happened. So-and-so wasn't there, and no. And I loved his response. He's like, this is my book. Go write your own damn book, and that's how he did it. So he got in a little trouble, but it just kind of rolled right off of his back. But I haven't heard of anybody getting in really bad trouble other than one client who talked about how kind of a hoodlum he was when he was growing up, and now his grandson thinks he could be a hoodlum too. So
positive influence.
Yeah. So that wasn't good. The grandson hadn't gotten to the point yet where he's a chance to be a successful businessman, which is what happened to this man after he grew out of being a hoodlum.
So what's next for you?
I'm working on my own memoir now. Yeah, but you know what I'm finding too is I figured, after 20 years of doing this, I might ought to start working on my own, because I write a lot of little things, but I haven't put a sustained work together. But I'm finding my process that I've been teaching people and all, it really does work. And,
after 20 years.
Well, I knew it worked for them, but I'm like, wow, it really works. This is really good. I'm about 55,000 words into it, and hope to finish it next year. So, but it's definitely hard to do it yourself, because you know a lot. So it's hard to just write kind of with abandon when I've edited so much for so many years. I'm thinking, oh, this is terrible, I've got to fix this and all. But it's fun. I'm having a good time with it, but it's scary. It's like, oh God, what if it's terrible? And here I am, I've been teaching other people how to do this for 20 years, and they're like, why did I listen to her? Look at this is terrible.
Well, proof positive when it's a successful.
I hope so. Yeah.
All right, Patricia, this has been delightful. Now we're moving to our rapid fire round.
Oh boy. Okay.
All right, you ready?
Ready.
Cake or pie?
Cake or pie? Neither. I'm gluten and sugar free.
Oh, that's nice. Do you have any dairy? Anything left to eat?
Yeah, I saw some sugar-free Russell Stover candy in that thing the other day. Okay.
What was your favorite car?
Favorite car was a Volkswagen Passat, white. It was a lemon. I got rid of it after 2 years, but I love that car.
I love cars that we love, right?
Yeah.
Because they become our babies.
I know. It was just a terrible baby. I mean, it was just bad.
The lemon.
The lemon baby, yes.
All right, from 1 to 10, how hot do you like to shower?
Probably about 4.
Ooh, a cold one.
Yeah, because my thermostat is broken, and it's really been broken for a while here. And so I like nothing hot. And, everybody's freezing and walking around with coats and everything in there. And I have no sleeves on. And I'm like, hey, this is great. I'm not hot today. I haven't had one hot flash since I got to this conference.
Bring on the AC.
That's right.
All right. Well, Patricia, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you. This has been fun.
This is the Florida Writer Podcast. This is Allison Nissen, your host. Allison out. Patricia Charpentier, author of the multi-award-winning book Eating an Elephant, Write Your Life One Bite at a Time, teaches, writes, coaches, edits, and ghostwrites, and publishes personal and family histories. Since 1999, she has helped hundreds of people write the most important stories of their lives. Through live workshops, online courses, and personal coaching, Patricia's clients have published more than 50 life-based books. Visit her at writingyourlife.org. For more information on the Florida Writers Association, visit us on the web at www.floridawriters.net.